Welcome back to another episode of Import Modify. So this episode is going to start the RB25 300zx build. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting a long time for this, so have I. So we're going to get this thing going. So if you watched my last episode, I showed you the box right there, and I said I would unbox it and show you guys what I got. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, there you guys have it. I got me the Freddy intake, and I'm really hyped on this intake because I really like the side mount intake more than the stock intake that goes over the top of the valve covers. I really can't stand that look, and I'm really looking for a nice clean design for the engine, and you can't beat it. I had a little bit of e-buck credit on eBay. If I'm saying it right, e-bucks. I had some e-bucks credit on eBay, and I got a really sweet deal on it. After my e-bucks, I paid like $170 for the intake manifold, which is not bad at all considering what it is. And this will definitely give us a little bit better flow for the intake manifold and give us a nice cleaner look. And it came with all of the accessories right here for your vacuum, fasteners and everything. And I wasn't sure whether or not this bolted on like the factory intake, so I did keep track of all my bolts there for the intake manifold, but we'll find out more about that later. First things first, we got to disassemble this engine. So where we're going to start on the engine is we're going to start by taking this valley cover off, getting the coil packs out, getting the spark plugs out. We're going to drain the oil, then getting the valve covers, and then from there we're going to go ahead and work on the timing, and just little by little we're going to peel this onion back and get it down to the bare bones. So let's go ahead and start it. Okay, so now that we got the cover off the valley, looks like we got some 8mm bolts right here that will remove the coil packs, and we will remove the harness before we do that. And it looks like we have a mounting bracket underneath it as well, so we'll just go ahead and do this step by step, and then after that, that will expose the spark plug. So let's go ahead and get that. Alright, so we got it all out now. That's how she looks in the valley. And now I'm going to take the time and take off the bolts on the side of the block and the intake manifold bolts. We're going to take off the spigot right here for the thermostat, and I'm going to drain the oil and take away the coolant, the cooler adapter, and the adapter here for the oil filter. And then from there, I think we're gonna move on to the front, getting the timing cover and they call this a crank angle sensor in the manual, but it's actually a cam angle sensor because it's mounted to the cam, but you know, it is what it is. Probably lost in translation somewhere between the English and Japanese translation on the manual, but not a bad deal. And I do like to keep track of all my hardware like that. I got it written down, so. And we got some HKS spark plugs. I didn't know that HKS made spark plugs, but I like to keep everything nice and organized whenever I take an engine apart. That way, whenever it comes time to put everything back together, there's no question where things go. So, all right, well, let's continue on with this thing. I'm gonna put a drain tray on the bottom right here, drain the oil, and then from there, we'll start removing things, and then that way I could catch anything that spills out. All right, so I got the adapter off. It's just 4 12mm bolts. I got the housing off for the thermostat. That was 3 12mm bolts. I took the motor mount bolts off. I took the drain off the head and the motor mount bolts as well. So I'm pretty much good right here on this part. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to, I guess, I'm still gonna leave these bolts in the head for now because I don't want to lose the placement of it, and it's not really necessary to take these off just yet. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to I don't wonder if I could get these off. I think I could get the valve covers off before I take the timing cover off. So I guess that's what we're gonna do next. We're gonna go ahead and remove the valve covers, and then after we get the valve covers off, I will move on to the timing cover. So we got the valve covers off now, and the cool thing about the stock cams is there's slots where the head bolts go, so you don't have to remove the cams to take the head off. But I will be stripping the whole head down and replacing all the valve seals in this thing, so I'm not going to worry about the cams just yet. I'll do that with it on the workbench, with it off the block. But the cams and the lobes all look good. There's a little bit of a rust spot right there. There's no telling how long this thing's been sitting on the shelf for though. You know, it's not in the prettiest shape. It's got a lot of oxidization on the head and the aluminum parts and rust on the block. So one of the main reasons why I want to go through the whole thing and clean it up and repaint everything. But all in all, it's, you know, it's very doable. So I guess I'm going to take off this feed line next, and then after that we will work on getting the timing components off. And we got to start off with the cam angle sensor, take that off, then we can get to the cover. Then after that, we'll be taking off the crank pulley, and then we already have the pulley off right there. You have to take this pulley off first in order to get this cover off, but we already got that off, so not a big deal. But yeah, let's go ahead and start working on the timing components. And one thing I forgot to mention, you want to make sure that everything is timed on the engine. This little orange mark right here, it marks 0 degrees. Top dead center, and also the lobes are going to be facing away from each other. So verifying the lobes are away and we are on the orange mark, we are at top dead center, so we are a go. So let's go ahead and rip into this thing. Wow guys, that was a freaking fight to get that cam angle sensor off, I'm gonna tell you what. But I was able to get it off by putting a little bit of WD-40 and letting it seep down in between the gasket. And where I think it was really getting caught up was on that O-ring inside there, inside the cam. But I used my oil filter wrench to twist it, and I had to give it a little bit of encouragement with a punch and a dead blow. So I had to work it a little bit back and forth to be careful not to destroy this thing. But I was able to get it off. And then what I used for the crank pulley was well, it's a steering wheel remover. It fit just perfect. I had to go through my bucket of bolts and find some 6x1mm thread pitch to mount up on there, and I was able to press it off. You got to be very careful. You don't want to lose this key right here. And this is just a a little plate that keeps the timing belt where it should be on the gear. So the cup side of that's gonna face outward. So we got that now, and from here, I'm going to remove the cam angle sensor bracket, and then we just gotta make sure the line marks, they should be spot on. You have a punch hole right here, well, a little indentation right there, and it lines up right here with the marking on the back plate. Same here, right there on the back plate. Now the timing moved just a little bit. It's right there, it's close enough. And then you have a marking as well right here, but it's so dirty on the oil pump that you can't even see it. So we know that it's good. I'm gonna go ahead now and remove the bracket and then loosen the tensioner, take the belt off. From there, we will remove the cam gears and the water pump. Then after that, pretty much we're done with the timing, and we will be able to remove the head. So let's go ahead and carry on with this bad boy. Alright, so we got the front cover and everything off the front, all the timing components. And this right here is an oil control cam gear. Where did oh, it's over here on the ground. And it has a lot of, well, oil pressure is what variates the timing on it. So whenever you take that off, there's 4 little bolts with the spring covered plate right here. And then just take that off, and this is 4 bolts right there. So we got everything off now on the front. So we're gonna move on now to getting the water pump off. Then after the water pump is off, we will move on to the head removal. For the head removal, you have a couple of 10mm bolts. One right there, one right there, and one right there. And I don't see one on this side. So you gotta make sure that you take all those 10mm bolts off first, then do the head bolts, and then the head will be able to come off. So let's go ahead and knock this out, and we'll get the head off next. Well, we're gonna do the water pump first, and then we'll get the head off next. Then after that, we'll do the oil pan. Alright guys, so the head's off now. There's the old head gasket right there. And here's the head off. And it's pretty cool how they got the slots right there. If you can see how they got the slots for the head bolts to come out. That's pretty cool. On the next episode, we'll be tearing into the head, so we'll be worrying about that later. Pistons look okay, just a little bit sooted, but all in all, pretty good. And now we got to remove the oil pan. And then after the oil pan is done, if we have time, we'll do the oil pump and the rear main seal right there. Alright guys, so we got to a good stopping point for tonight. I'm going to call it the night. On the next episode, whenever we come in, we will take care of the oil pump, the rear main seal assembly. We'll get that off, and then we're going to finish taking off the pickup tube and getting all the other little things off the block. Then we're going to sand it down and paint the block once I get all the scaling and nasty rust stuff off of it. And once we're at that point, we'll do the rod bearings and whatnot, and also want to take the pump apart on the oil pump and inspect the gears inside of it to make sure that this is a good oil pump before I reuse it. But the head came off pretty easy. Whenever you're taking the head off, you want to make sure that you work your way from the outside in, and you want to do gradual steps. You want to, loosen it a little bit and work your way out in, and then after that you do a final pass, loosening them all up. And then after that, you remove the bolts and then remove the head. So I know, I think the procedure calls for the cross pattern, but I did them in pairs. And I've done many heads like that. As long as you keep them in pairs and you do them in gradual steps, it's no issue at all. It's just whenever you torque the head down, you want to follow the manufacturer's procedure to the T. And we will do that whenever we reinstall the head. But yeah, and also whenever I was telling y'all earlier in the episode, this is pretty much how I do my nuts and bolts whenever I tear an engine down. I label everything on paper and I lay it out. And also my parts, I strategically place them and lay them out so that I know exactly where everything is at whenever it comes time to put the engine together. But a lot of these nuts and bolts, they're kind of in bad shape. So I'm going to have to look through these and see which ones I want to replace, and that way it looks nice whenever I go through all the effort of cleaning the engine up and painting it up. So, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to conclude this episode so you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will see you guys on the next episode.